You are listening to episode 215 of Game Deflators Podcast. My name's John, and I'm joined by Ryan.
Hey, everybody, here at the Game Deflators Podcast, we like to talk about games we've recently picked up, games we're currently playing, and we got coal in our stockings in this week's Inflation Deflation Challenge.
You know, I didn't realize that you changed the intro as we were talking because it's live.
That's why I asked when it was coming out.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, well, and it makes sense because the first level is at a mining facility. So I'm counting it. It's a reference. If you've been helpful enough, or not helpful enough, if you've been into it enough to get some of my little tiny references that I always try to put into my, announcements of the games, this week you will stand no chance because we played Shadow Master.
God, I have so much and so little to say about this game.
How did you do this to us, John? You just were casually threw out Shadow Master PS1, and I was like, oh, look at that cover. That's some sweet cover. Let's check this out.
So I'll tell you, I didn't fully read the description on what Shadow Master was. So if I would have seen ATV first-person shooter, I probably wouldn't have suggested it. But I just saw a futuristic first-person shooter as a description. I'm like, that sounds kind of cool. Let's play that. Do you have
an inherent bias against ATVs?
No, not that I have an inherent bias against ATVs, but I just knew the second I read ATV, and just before I popped in the game, I played it probably 30 minutes ago. All right, or finished playing it 30 minutes ago, and so I just before I pop it in, I'm like, well, let me read the wiki, kind of get a little more information. And then I look at it, it says first person shooter ATV. I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, that doesn't sound good at all. What did I get us into? And that's what we'll talk about in the Inflation Deflation. But you can, of course, find Game Deflators Podcast on the podcast app you're listening to now. You can also find us on social media at Game Deflators on Twitter and at The Game Deflators on Instagram and Facebook. You can find us on YouTube. We are actually, as of this episode, we will probably be caught up actually on YouTube. So cool. If that's your preferred way to listen, YouTube. And of course, you can find us on our out-of-date website, thegamedeflators.com. Hopefully I can get that thing updated. Now that YouTube is up to date, I can start working on the website and get that done. All of our podcasts are our episodes are up to date on there, but our inflation deflation stuff is not. And that's really what I want to focus on.
Yeah, one thing at a time. But hey, I have something to pose to our listeners as a comment challenge or something like that. Let us know if you like the triple threat throwdowns that we released. We tried that out. We're not sure if that was a success or not, but let us know. We may have another.
Yeah, we had one on 3 of the worst Super Nintendo games ever. And then we had a rhythm-based one on just random rhythm PS2 games. So
maybe we should do one on the best ATV games and not put this on that list.
No. We should
I had a bunch of fun with ATV Off-Road Fury on PS2. That was great.
We should totally do something like snowboarding, like snowboard games. I'm talking in the future about the past. That's what's happening here.
All right. Anyways.
All right. Cool. So recent pickups. Yeah, recent pickups. I had none. We're recording on a short week technically, so it's Friday night. Yeah, Friday night.
And who picks up things just before Christmas?
Me. I literally just had a game come in yesterday. But I already talked about it with Barry last week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I can't claim that one again, But yeah, so I had no pickups technically as of that day. But we'll see what Santa brings. And by Santa, I mean my wife and my mom. Oh, well, I mean, no, sorry. They're doing it for Santa. I don't know if we have 10-year-olds that listen, Ryan. Hopefully we don't, because some of the stuff we say,
I don't know. We're not the worst, but yeah, I doubt we do.
Yeah. But no pickups. But I am still playing Sackboy's Big Adventure. And I beat Bomberman R.
How was it?
Not that great from a story perspective. So like the game itself is fantastic. Like it's honestly one of the better Bombermans when you're looking at it from a Bomberman gameplay aspect. But the story was just eh. It was like just story mode, like for Bomberman, and it's not very fun with just one person. And my wife didn't seem too much into it, so I played it on my own. So it was like every time the baby was taking a nap, I was like Bomberman for 40 minutes, and then back to the baby, and it was cool because I could kind of breeze through it, no problem. Um, so yeah, that's what I ended up. But I did post a little thing on our Twitter and Facebook and Instagram with a little picture of the Bomberman case, just to kind of give my general opinion on it. That really what it kind of boils down to is it's more fun with friends.
So
That's
what's next?
next is you know what? I did get something. I got Stray. The PS5 version of Stray from I Am 8-Bit came in finally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I got that. Had a little snafu with the case and the slipcover. So the slipcover that they provided does not fit the case they provided, and apparently it's like a millimeter or two off from like what a standard PS4 or PS5 case is in size. So the slipcover literally would not go onto the case. So I had to swap out for like my Spyro case or something on PS4 and then put in like
Wait. So it came with a slipcover that wasn't
it,
on the
that
case?
did not no. So they folded the corners in and laid it flat. They didn't put it on the actual game itself, and you had
So
to
they
try and do.
sent it to you as like, hey, we know this isn't going to fit on the case, so we're not going to
Oh,
package it on there.
absolutely. That's
What the
exactly what happened.
hell?
I know. I was like, this is bullshit. And I'm
Has
like,
anybody else like talked about
oh
that?
yeah, there's tons of people like, does your case fit? And there are people like, oh, I just had to swap out for another PS5 case because these are just a little bit bigger than like standard PS5 cases. So we had to swap it out. I'm like, you shouldn't have to do that. Like, and it's a paper slipcover. It's not like it costs them that much to make it the right flipping size. And on top of that, they shoved like all the goodies, by the way, were inside of the game case. So like my game was loose because like the patch and the poster and the cards and everything that came with it was all jammed into the actual game case, which jostled the disc loose. So the disc was actually loose when I received it. Like I only experienced that on Amazon. And for whatever reason, I am 8-bit did that. So honestly, like not exactly the best experience with this like special release, like exclusive edition. So I would not go through them again. Like,
Mm.
yeah, there's just no way. Like that
Critical
was just,
feedback.
yeah, I just wouldn't go through them again. So I swapped out the case, obviously, and it fits, but you know, should I have to do that? No. Like you guys should do it right from the get go. Um, so next is, I was thinking Stray, but I really want to get a head start on my new game's resolution, which I have already picked.
Well, don't you
Um,
need something else you can do like 40 minutes at a time?
Prepping D&D materials for you guys so we could start in January.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, if
That's
you're going to pick up another game, it's going to have to be games that are going to fit that same schedule as Bomberman, basically, right? Like, that's
if I
just how it's going to be.
well, no, because if you remember the
Level based.
conversation. No, if you remember the conversation last week, One Piece has been consuming so much of my time at
You're going to
night.
run out of that pretty quick.
I am. I'm on episode 800. So, I've only got like honestly probably like next week I'll be caught up on One Piece. As sad as that sounds.
Let's just do your One Piece section now. Where are you at?
I am in Whole Cake Islands
Okay.
with
Okay. That's where I'm at. You're probably
he's
right
actually
behind me, I'm
he
sure.
is battling this sweet guy number 3, whoever it is in the forest.
Where he's eating
Yeah.
all
Oh
the
no,
biscuits.
he hasn't eaten all the biscuits yet, but I figured that was going to happen.
Okay.
So I was like, of all things to occur, a biscuit man, like Luffy's totally eating
Yeah.
biscuits. I'm like, that's the way to defeat him, clearly. So
Yeah,
yeah,
you're definitely, by the time we talk next week, you're definitely going to be well past me.
isn't that scary?
Yeah, you did it in like 3 months.
Like, yeah, just about. I mean,
Yeah.
because I had,
I've been reading this for years at this point, but the thing is, like, I'll read for a span and then I stop. And I
mhm,
used to kind of bounce back and forth between this and Berserk, but I haven't read Berserk in quite a while.
yeah. So, Yeah, as far as my new games resolution is concerned, obviously we'll reveal those next week. We're going to have John Rue of the Retro Room Rue. So we've had him on before, a little indie dev, does some cool stuff. So we're going to be doing new games resolutions with Rue next week. And I'll tell you, it is an RPG. So I did want to play another one. I'd mentioned that a while back. That's all I'm going to tell you. And I'm doing it as almost a challenge to myself to kind of keep up with like a schedule on gaming. So when the baby's asleep, I'll have like several hours where I can, game and just kind of dedicate that time. As of right now, for the 40-minute sessions, I'm going to probably be planning more D&D stuff. Like that's probably the time I'll take as of right now. And then moving down the road, that's why I want to get that new games resolution out of the way. If I can knock it out in the next several weeks, I think it shouldn't honestly take me that long. I think it's about 30 hours total is what I should expect. So if I can knock it out in the next few weeks, then that'll open me up to just kind of prep D&D and then game on the side and just kind of have like a good, schedule going, a good flow moving forward. So, and that's usually when I have like a new games resolution, or really any gaming I do, it's at nighttime anyway. So it's not like anything's really changing for me in that respect, other than, baby can wake up at any point and then I got to feed him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. How about yourself?
For this week, I didn't pick up anything and I didn't play anything. I was just doing other stuff this week. I did a lot of handmade gifts for Christmas this year. I cannot recommend highly enough, if you are a crafty person, handmade gifts are the way to go. I don't know why, as an art major, it took me 32 years to realize this, but I am going to lean hard on this moving forward in the future. So if you are a person who receives gift from me, prepare to hopefully be impressed by my skill and disappointed at the price tag.
That's kind of how I'm going to be with a 3D printer.
John, I'm going to make you a video game one day.
That'd be pretty cool.
It's a handmade gift. It'll be a you lose screen.
I'm just going to print you something on I'll just print you something on a 3D printer. I'll be that's a little Luffy bust, and it didn't cost me anything other than some resin and some time.
And it'd probably be at least as good as that one you bought me last year.
I didn't buy you one last year. I bought it for your birthday.
Yeah, that was this past birthday.
Okay, which was like
it's still this year ago. For another week.
Yeah, so it's still this year. Yeah. But if you're listening to us in 2023, it was last year.
Yeah. I guess I was referencing my next birthday.
Yeah. Okay. I see what you're doing.
Anyways, yeah. So nothing doing this week.
All right. So before we start on kind of our general discussions here, we'll be covering Microsoft confirming that Sony has blocked 4 games from hitting the Xbox forever. We already knew this was a thing, but we're going to talk about it. Microsoft files a patent for displaying personalized ads in video games. We called this like a long time ago. We talked about it and we were like, it's going to happen, even though it was just kind of like, maybe it will, maybe it won't. And then we're going to talk about the state of a Nintendo Switch in 2022 and maybe where it is going to be in 2023. But before we do that, I had a general question for you, and it's on video game cutscenes and the direction that cutscenes have gone over the years. So obviously when you and I first started gaming, it was like early on, really no cutscenes for the most part, like Super Nintendo and stuff. We just had platformers and general games of, if there was a cutscene, I'd be shocked, but like minimal cutscenes at best, right? And then moving into the N64, PS1, we started to see more cutscenes, and now we're at like full-fledged, like Barry last week was talking about with Xenoblade Chronicles 3, straight up like movie type cutscenes where you just kind of sit back and you watch. And so what are your thoughts on that? Is it good for gaming? Is it bad for gaming?
I want to clarify our terms here real quick first. So when you're saying cutscenes, are you including like just like full motion video, or are you talking like in-engine cutscenes as well? Just like anytime you're not in control of the character, basically.
Yeah, anytime you're not in control of the character.
So I think that there's like a big difference between the feeling that you get between the two. Like if you've played God of War 2018, and I'm not going to talk about Ragnarok because I haven't played Ragnarok, but like that whole thing is like in one take, and it like rarely takes the control away from you. Like it does, like you do see like Kratos like throw down and do stuff that isn't just like in that behind the shoulder view, but largely the game you're in control of. And in some games it doesn't want to take that control away, and you might wind up like jumping all around and running around the scene and teabagging like the doctor while he's trying to give you the mission or something. Like there can be that immersion breaking barrier if you're fully in control during like a serious moment. But there is that thing of never taking the control away and that power where you're in the scene. And then there's a lot of bleed over now too, where I've heard criticism of like even the new God of War, where it's like Mimir just kind of never shuts up. And you might do something like get into a big fight, and as soon as the fight's over, Mimir's just like, oh, where did I leave off? And he just starts back up with his story. And it's like really taking you that much more out of the moment because they're trying to interject these qualities of cutscenes without doing the cutscene thing. Like they're still trying to interject banter. They're still trying to interject lore or stuff that would strive forward the story. Like, games where you can pick up and listen to an audio log, like that's not a cutscene, but it's doing half the action of a cutscene while allowing you to continue to play. So I feel like in a world where everything would be one way or the other, I'd rather have cutscenes than have everything just be like, incongruous noise that just runs alongside your playthrough as you go at your own pace. Like that doesn't carry that same weight and impact. And I think there's definitely a balance. Like I've never been really into the Metal Gear Solid series, and I know that some of those games are like 5 hours a movie or whatever. you know there's give and take, and it's always been that argument. But like ever since playing Final Fantasy X and like making saves before the cutscenes so that I could go back and rewatch the cutscenes, like, and just being blown away, like I'm a fan. I don't think that they necessarily need to be most of a play session that you're going to sit down and do. I don't know. That's a lot of words that just came out of my mouth. What do you think?
I kind of got a little chuckle like internally when you mentioned Final Fantasy X specifically, because you could watch all of the cutscenes in the theater. So I just remember,
Well, if you beat it.
yeah, I just remember
I
like
never beat it.
Oh, well, I just remember doing what you were doing, right? Save, like, oh, cool, like this cutscene, I really want to watch it again. So excited. And then the theater comes up. I'm like, well, damn, like I didn't need to do all that after all.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know. I kind of like where the industry has gone in general of like these full blown like movie type of breaks. I honestly really like it because it kind of pulls you into the game a little more. I feel like, yes, you're playing, you're actively involved, but like that emotional aspect that comes from like watching a film, or I don't know, listening to music, for example, like all of those elements of art that you get from like that type of immersion, I think is great. And when you start incorporate, like if you watch something in that video and you're like, oh man, it's so cool, like I'm so excited to see like what happens next, and like you're back in control now, like that to me is really cool. And I've always kind of liked that aspect of it. And I'll Final Fantasy X is an interesting thing that you brought up, because for me that was like, while there were like cutscenes, in like Final Fantasy 7 and 8 and 9, and you had like those scenes, right, that would occur. 10 is kind of like what really made it more cinematic in my experience, like when playing video games early on. And it's just kind of gone up since there with like the Uncharted games, Last of Us and Last of Us 2. And of course you have the Metal Gear Solid, Guns to Patriots, I think is what it was called back on the PS3, if I recall correctly. And you're right, that was a very long ass like movie that you pretty much got at the end there. But I was all for it. Just knowing that I could kind of sit back and just watch this story like unveil itself was just super cool. Um, and it's just kind of brought a new dynamic to gaming, I think. So, yeah, I'm all for it.
Yeah, and another thing that is something to consider too is there's like a whole nother aspect that I think sometimes the games now too, which is speed running. And whether or not that's an impact on you as a game dev, one thing that speedrunners run into, that casual players run into, but mean very different things for them, is are cutscenes skippable or not? Are you locked in and forced to experience that? Or do you respect the player's decision to decide whether they want to participate with it or not? Are you going to allow them to make that choice on a subsequent playthrough? Or are you always going to force them to do that? Because like for speedrunners who play these games thousands and thousands of times over and over again, trying to do it as quick as possible, sometimes that can be a nice reprieve. Sometimes it can be the thing that makes it so you can only do a couple runs a day as opposed to, more than that.
So, the way I kind of look at gaming is gaming was not created for speedrunners, Gaming is meant to be like enjoyed, like those story-based games at least, right? They're meant to like be enjoyed in that capacity and like sit back, watch the story, really kind of explore the speed running. Like it's cool, I totally get it, but at the same time, it's like pick and
Well,
choose your
even if you're
battles.
not, well, no, I'm not saying that like the speedrunners are the ones to consider, but like, I mean, even if it's just like you playing a game, like if you've played that game like 4 times because it's your favorite game, like maybe there's certain cutscenes you want to watch, but certain ones you'd rather just like, okay, I'm playing the game, let me play the game.
Yeah, I mean,
But they're
so
like, no, you're gonna do this for the next 20 minutes.
I don't know of many games that have like forced you to watch a cutscene that I've played in a while. I know Metal Gear Solid specifically. I'm pretty sure about when I had to watch everything, but there were sections where you would actually play as well. So like you'd have this crazy cutscene for however long, and then you'd play a little bit, and then cutscene, play a little bit, cutscene. Um, Games that I played that have it as skippable, I do appreciate, and it's not a matter of like that I plan on skipping it. It's just that if I did play it again, I would appreciate being able to skip a cutscene. But if I'm playing it a second time, I'm probably playing it because I really enjoyed it. Not, I don't want to skip a cutscene just to skip it at that point.
Well, but everybody enjoys games for different reasons. Like
Yeah,
you might not like the story, but you might really like the action in a game.
yeah, but me personally, and I get it. I get what you're saying. But as far as skipping, what I do like is when developers put in like hold down the X button for like 20 seconds to skip the cutscene versus press triangle.
Yeah, yeah,
And then
yeah.
you're like, oh
Like you
shit,
don't
like
want to accidentally skip a cutscene for
and that's
sure.
happened, and I've
Or,
had to like just straight go back, like, and that's what I hate about like the Elden Ring type games and Demon Souls and Dark Souls and all of that is I don't think their cutscenes are like hold it down to skip, like it's just skip. And there's been and those save automatically. So like if you straight up miss it, you're screwed. Like you gotta
well, you
watch
could
it
go
somewhere.
watch anything on YouTube.
You can, but like it's different. Like you're in the moment, you're on your
Or you
TV.
could load a manual save.
I guess, if you want to do that. But and that's assuming that you got manual saves going before that point that are like close.
Oh, don't skip then. Be
Well,
careful.
yeah, well, that's why usually when cutscenes happen,
Don't
I put
put
the
your
controller down.
controller face down in your peanut butter.
Oh, that's not on peanut butter, but it's happened. I put my controller down. Oh, well, it doesn't. What doesn't help is when you have an infant and you're playing some of these games and
Don't have an infant.
well, that's too
It's
late.
that simple, John. It's
Too
that
late.
simple.
Yeah, I didn't learn my lesson. But it sucks when you're playing a game and you like kicks the control. There's been several times where we're playing Sackboy's Big Adventure and I'm holding him, and my wife is collecting whatever things are going on, and he just kicks my joystick, and I just go flying off screen.
Your baby kicked you in the sack?
And technically, kicks Sackboy. Okay, let's move on to our first
Oh,
topic
sorry.
here.
He did kick you in the sack. He kicked you in the joystick.
On the joystick, yeah. Okay, so our first topic here is Microsoft confirms that Sony has blocked these 4 games from ever hitting the Xbox, and this is Jez Corden at Windows Central.
Forever. You left out the forever.
I said forever hitting the Xbox, didn't I?
No.
Whatever. Okay, so it's late. Jez Corden at Windows Central. So, um, the games that have been blocked. I mean,
This is
Sony's
whiny, isn't it?
yeah, like at
Like
this
they're
point,
already exclusive, but for them to like be like, well, not only did they make it exclusive, but they made it exclusive and it can't be on Xbox. Well, that's what exclusive means.
yeah,
Like it wasn't going to go to Xbox anyways. Like if they decide they want to release it later for PC, like uh, it's the same thing as exclusive. This is just Xbox trying to like their way out of a thing
yeah.
still.
Let me see something really quick because I'm curious. I know Silent Hill 2 is one of those. Okay,
Silent Hill 2, Final
Silent
Fantasy
Hill.
7 Remake, Final
Here's the
Fantasy
deal.
16.
And here's the deal. Like, isn't Final Fantasy 7 Remake going on PC at some point? And then on top of that, it specifically said on 16, it said exclusive until 12/31/2020 or 2023. So it's a
Yeah,
year
but it's
exclusivity.
probably going to be just PC also is what they're thinking.
Yeah, and that's fine, which means it's just not going to be on Xbox. It's going to be on PC. It's not exclusive. And so and it's kind of like the
is
Xbox.
PC though, like the thing is PC isn't a company.
No, it's not.
Like so like if something's on PC, like no one person benefits from I mean Steam does or Epic does.
Microsoft
basically
does because of Windows. Unless they're playing on a Mac, Microsoft is benefiting from Windows OS being on those systems.
Well, yeah, but I mean that's the thing. Like if they truly didn't want anybody who had a Microsoft account to be able to play it, they wouldn't release stuff on PC. But everybody kind of acknowledges PC as like the agnostic, not a brand.
Yeah. But here's why I do think it's a little whiny, right? Like these are Japanese companies, right? Who are in a sense showing long-term loyalty to having worked with Sony. And then Sony, of course, well, no, hold on. And then Sony, of course, paying up, right, to kind of make that exclusive. Like if you're gonna hammer anybody here, hammer Square, hammer,
Square's put all of their backlog Final Fantasy games on Game Pass.
Yeah.
Like they're definitely willing to take those money from Microsoft. Like they'll take it. But if Sony's willing to pony up and say, hey, guess what? We'll pay you extra to not do that. I mean, that doesn't change it from being exclusive.
Yeah.
Like it's the same thing as being exclusive.
And what is Sony going to do, right? Like this is Microsoft not stepping up and putting forth more cash to get these exclusives.
I mean, could you outbid them? Like, can you just be like, hey, listen, I know you like Sony. I know you got history, but listen, whatever they're going to pay you, we'll double it. Like, is that how this works? Or is it just like, no, you know what? Sony, they made the offer. We're going to go with them because it's the right thing to do.
Here's what I don't get, right? If Square took an offer from Microsoft for say 1.5 times the money, and Microsoft said, hey, we want that on Xbox exclusive, can't be on Sony. Like
I don't think that would ever happen.
But hold on. Say Microsoft throws down double the amount of money, right? Square has to legitimately consider this as like, well, that's a good offer, obviously, and they're going to pay X amount of money, and we're going to get it on there, and we'll get it on PC and everything else.
I think it depends on like base units. Like I think that they're going to sell base units on PlayStation more than they would ever be able to exclusively sell on Xbox because there just isn't the built-in like everybody in Japan that would buy Final Fantasy game doesn't have an Xbox, but they all have a PlayStation and they'll all buy it as soon as it drops.
Well,
and that's going to be more like Xbox isn't going to pay, 10 million times 70 times 1.5.
Let's use the example of Silent Hill 2 in that case, a Konami game, right?
Yeah, but that's not going to sell like
it was
millions of units.
It's not, right? But Sony obviously put forth a certain amount of money to make it exclusive, right?
Yeah.
So Microsoft could have very easily also made that exclusive. And what is Sony going to do? Like, is Sony going to tell Konami, you can't put games on our console anymore? No, they're just going to be like, well, shit, we missed a boat on that because Microsoft outbid us. Like,
Yeah, but I don't think that's the thing though. Like Microsoft has to go to these companies with an amount of money that makes sense, but I just don't think Microsoft is going to give them enough money to cover the base units that they would be able to move on PlayStation. Like they're going to be able to sell X amount of units on PlayStation, and I think that's more than Microsoft is willing to pay for a game that, like, even if they got the exclusivity of it, like not that many people are really going to play that compared to as would.
well, and see, that's the huge difference too between like Microsoft and Sony. Is like Sony has consistently shown a willingness to put exclusives on their console and only on their console. And now, obviously, things have been moving over to PC, but those items going to PC have been in market for X amount of time. Obviously, that like, you know, prime time that purchased it at $60 or $70 has already passed, and now they're like, all right, we'll port it over to PC. So totally get that. And most PlayStation players, I don't think, are rolling on PC as well, anyways. There might be like PlayStation and Nintendo, as I've done for a number of years. But as far as like units being moved, like, yeah, it might pain Microsoft at first, but you're going to move more units by having Silent Hill 2 exclusively in your console, Final Fantasy 16 exclusively in your console. If you were to go into Japan, which, Microsoft like notoriously struggles in,
Yeah.
and you had the Series S as a cheaper, affordable console, and you had Final Fantasy 16 exclusive to your console, you're going to see a bigger uptick of Xbox sales in that region
Yeah,
because of
yeah,
that.
definitely. But the thing is, like the
But
amount of money.
that's how you need to do it. I mean, they're not, they're buying, Bethesda, and they're acquiring Activision, right? Like, or
I
Activision
just
Blizzard.
I think in the economy that we're in too, and with the potential like future raise and things, like I don't think that right now, you know, you're really gonna grab that many people that are willing and able to go out and buy an extra console for one legacy title when they're have deliberately chosen not to buy that console
Well, they're
because they don't need to, because the legacy titles are, you know, they've, I don't know, the legacy stuff like Final Fantasy, like a lot of those were coming out on Xbox for a while, like is Kingdom Hearts on Xbox or is that PlayStation only?
I think it's on Xbox now, yeah.
Okay, so it's
And
like
then,
there's so many things that are like I think like after something's like 10, 15 years old, it should have to be multi-plat. Like maybe that's the thing. Like maybe exclusivity needs to be, have a shelf life. Like make
well, it
something
does.
exclusive, but like if it gets a remake or a second remake, it's got to be on everything. It's got to be opened up so that people can have access and it can be ubiquitous and fair. Maybe that's what needs to happen, is some self like um limiting instead of just being gravity all the time.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I was on Twitter earlier, just kind of browsing around, and apparently Activision like put in like their word to the FTC on like their opinion on the whole matter, and like this
We want
acquisition
to be
occurring.
sold. We want to
Yeah.
make money.
So Activision, of course, put in a very biased stance on it, on how it's like great for gamers and everything else. Yet there's a lawsuit by gamers on the acquisition, and that it's not going to be great for gamers. Um, I think when you kind of look at like what Microsoft has done over the years, you know, consider this: PlayStation or Sony had the PlayStation 1. When the PlayStation 2 came out and sold like gangbusters, guess who also had a console out? Microsoft. Guess who had a console out with the PS3? Microsoft. Guess who had a console out during the PS4? Microsoft. Here we are, 16, 20 years later, roughly, and Microsoft is still bitching about how Sony is blocking exclusives. They could have been building exclusives in their library for years. Like games like Raise as Hell, for example, or like a lot of the older Oddworld games that they've had. that they could have looked to get exclusive rights on those. You know, they've had tons and tons of games. Like, look how they fumbled with Halo recently. Like, they've kind of milked Master Chief to the point where nobody, like, it's flipping $10 at Target right now, or it was. Like, $60 game is $10. You know, and all that they've done with, you know, Game Pass, like, they've shown like buying exclusives to put like all of his content, but they're not actively going out developing exclusives. They're not actively partnering with somebody's developers like Square and Konami to bring exclusives to their console for a timed period of time. They did it with like BioShock, and it worked very well when they did it with BioShock. You know, they did some of that stuff with the 360, and obviously it had a pretty significant lead. As many will tell you, they gave up towards the end, which is why Sony surpassed them. They realistically could have won that generation pretty, you know, heavily, and obviously went into with the Xbox One with momentum, but they've made some crazy decisions and, you know, not picked up exclusive deals and all this other stuff. And here we are with the newest Xbox, and then, you know, myself.
Wait, were you saying they could have beat them in the PS4 generation?
PS3 gen with the 360.
I think the 360 was like,
it was, and then they gave up, and PS3 surpassed it.
Yeah.
You know, so like that's a generation they could have won pretty heavy. I mean, they had a lot of momentum. The Red Ring of Death obviously killed that for them. But honestly, like if you don't have the Red Ring and the Yellow Light of Death, that's a totally different generation. I think Microsoft just wins that like hand over fist, wins that generation and brings that momentum in. But they've made some really weird decisions over the last few generations. And it doesn't seem like they've kind of picked up any steam, you know? They've been in this game for a while. Like, I'm kind of sick of hearing them bitch about exclusives and Sony having exclusives, and like build your own exclusives.
Well,
Instead, they decide they're trying to buy exclusives. They're trying to buy exclusives. They're not trying to build their own exclusives. They're trying to buy exclusives. There's a clear difference between what Sony does and what Microsoft does. So, and that's why gamers, I think, are pretty pissed. Like, I would love to support Microsoft and what they've had. Like, I have a number of Xbox games.
Newer than a 360 console.
No, I don't, because I haven't seen a purpose. There's never been exclusives on those consoles. They've all been on PC. All the games. Why would I buy an Xbox?
You didn't even have a PC until last year.
No, my older PC, I used to play games that were on both Xbox, and like I would play Halo and stuff on PC. So I've had like those moments, and I've played, you know, newer Xbox consoles with people. But the reason I continue to go back to Sony is specifically because of exclusives. And if Microsoft isn't offering their own outside of buying IPs, why would I go to them? And especially when those games are going to be on PC anyways. Like, why would I buy an Xbox? So, all right. Enough on this. We could probably go on for a very long time.
Let's talk some more shit about Microsoft.
Yeah, next shit about Microsoft. Microsoft files a patent for displaying personalized ads in games. This is Matthew Humphreys at PC Mag. You and I talked about this a while back. You know, I had kind of mentioned that I was honestly okay with like subliminal type messaging because it's already in movies and other stuff, like taking place in video games and being personalized for the consumer. What fresh
new hell is this?
I'm okay with this if it means the price is going to be kept down.
No, it's not. It's so like this. I think this is probably somewhat tied to the idea that they were floating around, that they did like a poll or something that was like, would you take like a cheaper version of Game Pass with ads?
And it's I would if it wasn't like breaks in the game. Which I forgot where it was. It was like,
but it's like, do you want to play a game where it's like headphones, and it's like, why do I see these headphones everywhere?
Or you're like in the middle of a cutscene. It's like the McRib is back.
Yeah, so it's like this is
just
one of those things where it's like,
it wouldn't be that.
Actual gaming is one of the last bastions that I feel like you can kind of get away from ads, even though there already have been ads in games. But it's like, just stop. Like, we're just born with the consent to be advertised to. So like, you can't revoke that right. Like, there's supposed to be laws that stop it from your view being like obstructed by ads all the time, but you can't live your life without just having people forcing this on you, and just leave it alone.
You kind of do. Let me look this up really quick, because you're gonna love this. Okay, so this is back in 2007. The average person sees 5,000 adverts every day.
Yeah.
So, point being is nobody's really. I mean, you've been forced into this for years, anyways. Like advertisements are everywhere. If you go into a movie and you see Coca-Cola on the screen in the movie, Coke paid to have that placement there. Like that's an advert that you're seeing. They're everywhere. So if it's going to keep the price down of Game Pass, and it
doesn't make the movies cheaper.
Well,
movie tickets have gone up.
Yeah, they have. But that's overhead costs and physical type things, and also the fact that movies are more expensive. So what ends up happening is if the movies are costing millions upon millions of dollars to create, well, the theaters have to pay a certain amount of money towards,
Well, you don't have to explain how like movie theaters operate. I get how they operate.
Yeah, but I mean, it's different. Gaming is a little different.
We're not getting. Are we getting more advertised to in movie theaters? Like, are their ad dollars more effective, even though our movie ticket prices have gone up?
Well, and popcorn and Coke and all that stuff has gone up too. Look, I mean, with the gaming thing, it's the way that they position these ads is they were non-invasive. So it's merely if you're driving a racing game and there's a billboard and that billboard has Beats headphones, that's your advertisement.
Yeah,
does it take away from the game?
No, but the advertisement is personalized ads. So it's still it's another company sharing and selling your information and profiting off of you.
Yeah, so Ryan, when you're playing a racing game, you'll see a billboard that has Pornhub that comes up as you're playing.
It's just it's one of those things where the older I get, the more I hate advertising. And it's
you're in a podcast of a guy that's in marketing.
Yeah, well, advertising sucks, man. Advertising is like insurance.
See, like
promoted by the devil.
Dude, like I'm on team chats where we share commercials. Like, I mean, that's what I do. So like for me, it doesn't bug me because
I stopped watching the Super Bowl for the commercials years ago.
Oh yeah, they go on YouTube that same night. So like,
no, they're all awful. They don't make good ones anymore.
No, they're terrible. Like I don't think I've seen a good Super Bowl commercial in a long time.
I don't know, man. Like if they could give me free high quality games without intrusive ads, they already would have. So there's nothing Microsoft's going to be able to do that nobody else has already done, because there's no like magic way to make this work. Like you get advertised to, and you get advertised to.
As long as it's not like Hulu, which is, I have the cheaper version of Hulu, for example.
Oh, that's not worth it. It's not worth it.
I mean, it is kind of, because like I just kind of walk over, grab a snack or drink or grab water or run to the bathroom, whatever it may be. So it's kind of nice to have that little break versus like waiting for an episode and pausing the episode myself and then doing something, coming back. Like I just know I have like designated times where I can get up and go do something. So as long as it's not like that, I'm cool with it. If it's non-invasive advertisements that are geared towards you as an individual, and it's just on a billboard, or it's like a screen comes up as you're walking down the street, like that to me is lifelike anyways, to see those types of ads. And if it's geared towards you, it's cool. Now, what I think we may have an issue with is if it's like click here and you click it and you exit your game to go handle whatever it is, like
I don't
that
think
would be a little different. Yeah. But dude, how embarrassing would it be if like you're playing a game and like your significant other walks in, it's like, something for like, I don't know, condoms or like OnlyFans type stuff.
Advertiser, would be on there.
Hey, you never know. Money talks, right?
No,
but
it
like,
doesn't. That's not something you would ever see in that context.
Well, I look, it's 2023 coming up.
Advertising. You're the marketing person. You're telling me that they would accept that in like even an M-rated game?
Yeah. Dude, come on. Like, if you can run around in Grand Theft Auto and chase people with a giant purple dildo, I'm pretty sure it's okay to have a Pornhub advertisement come up on a billboard.
Okay, I guess maybe I wasn't thinking about Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are certain games that
Okay,
type of
but what
stuff.
about other games? So like how do they break other games to force this in? Like, oh, Red Dead 3. Let's just make, a fake old-timey Coke ad to throw in there. Don't worry, they're gamers, they're stupid. They
Well,
don't give a shit.
it's only certain types of games are going to be able to do that.
No,
Like,
no, it'll be every game. Like
no.
that's not how this works. There's not just like, oh, it's only these things. No, microtransactions are in every single game that
Can
they
you
can
just
possibly shove them into.
can you just imagine like um you're playing Plague Tale and you have the rats everywhere and a little tiny guy comes up and he's like, "Sign up with Orkin today. Get rid of your rats."
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
Like it's going to be in every
no,
single game.
I I don't think it'll be in every type of game. And
Why not? If they
when
can make
we
money off of it and it's non-obtrusive, why wouldn't they do it, John?
well, I
Nobody
mean,
would turn down free money.
it could also be in like a
And
banner ad or
also, you
something.
already know that video game producers don't give a shit anyways about
Oh
us.
no, absolutely not. Can you imagine your loot crate? You open it up and it's a coupon for buy one get one pizzas or something.
No, you open the loot crate, and then if you watch an advertisement, you get a chance at getting a better loot crate result.
Oh my God. Okay, before we move on to the next topic, I just had to tell you. So apparently D&D Beyond was doing Advent type calendar or something like that, and you would pay. It's like whatever amount you pay for like your 25 days of Advent calendar, and like the first one was like badass. Apparently, they gave like this really cool content, and then every single one since then has been like 10% and 20% off coupons for D&D Beyond, and people are absolutely pissed. And I'm just laughing so hard at this. Like, how cringeworthy is it that you as a company are like, I'm gonna like people already paid, and I'm just gonna give them a coupon to give me more money in like this advent calendar.
I
It's the
was
most
like, isn't D&D Beyond like the only thing you really buy is like full price D&D books
yeah,
and
pretty much.
adventures?
And you get like the PDF versions basically.
Yeah, so like what could they give away for 25 days?
I don't know.
I
Like,
mean, a PDF is worth as much as the chocolate that is inside of a normal advent calendar,
yeah,
but not
maybe
to
free
wizards it
chocolate.
isn't.
Well, apparently they're trying to monetize more too, so they're doing a whole bunch of other crazy stuff that is pissing
Oh, you
people
want to
off.
know the rules, do you? Well, those cost extra.
Oh man, get our advent calendar and you'll get Rule 25 of D&D, which I don't know what Rule 25 would be. Uh,
Oh,
okay,
sorry, you only bought spells A through J.
that would be some shit. Like, I will just go on Google and find the rest of the spells. You know, sorry, one more thing on that. So I was on Reddit the other day on a D&D forum, and somebody was bitching about it. I'm like, you know, it's not like they made decades of physical copies of books that we could just run ourselves. Like Wizards is also saying we want to monetize the whole process of like D&D, and we're gonna, try and do all of these things to make D&D digital and all this other stuff. And gamers are like, no, thank you. We'll just play 3.5.
Yeah, still.
like, like still, like all these years later, we're a decade into like 5e. Do you think people are honestly like, if they're happy with 5e and all the adventures that
Oh,
come with that?
everybody's gonna buy 6 or
Well,
whatever the next
yeah, but if
D&D
it's like,
next or
but
whatever.
say it's like only digital, no, not happening. And they're dumbing it down too, so it's not like, you know they already dumbed down 5e for most of us to play. They're going to dumb it down even further to play 6e. Nobody wants that. So yeah. All right, the state of Nintendo Switch in 2022. This is Ethan Gack at Kotaku. So Ryan, you kick it off.
So, this was actually a pretty good read. It put a lot of things in perspective for me. And some of my thoughts, there was way less Nintendo Switch online content than I thought there was. So that's disappointing. Not that I've been paying for it.
That's
But,
true.
whatever, I guess. we could all wish it would be better. I think that I have been voicing my opinions for a long time that I'm tired of talking and, wishing and speculating on a Switch Pro. So I am ready to switch gears and just move on to the Switch Next or whatever is coming after this. I
It's a
think
clear miss if it's not called the Super Nintendo Switch.
they're never going to do the Super thing again. They did that for one console. Why? It's not like it was a trend.
Well, I mean, they did the Wii U, and that failed. At least Super
They didn't
Nintendo
call it the
Switch.
Super Wii, and that would have made it sold better.
I don't know. Maybe it would have made it super.
The Super Switch.
All right.
No, I
Yeah.
don't know what they'll do next, but like it's got to be more powerful. It's got to have a good screen. It's got to have
Backwards compatibility with upscaling.
yeah, there's a lot of stuff that has to happen, and the Switch is just really showing its age. I've been seeing so many people talk about this exact same article, basically, in their own ways or forms or opinions. But it basically all comes down to the same thing that, the games that they're producing now are obviously struggling to be anything close to what that they should be. These studios are being held back by the technology, and it's getting harder for other studios to port their games to the Switch. We've seen multiple games just say, hey, we're not gonna do a Switch port for this game because it's just not going to be feasible.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say though, the Switch has a ton of great indie games, but a lot of the other consoles also have great indie games because they're multi-platform for the most part. Um, but you're 100% right. This article is 100% right. You started the year off with Arceus. You're ending the year with Pokemon Scarlet Violet, which is a clear indication that the console's struggling. You did have Kirby in there. You had Xenoblade Chronicles 3. And it makes you wonder if those games were released on a Super Nintendo Switch or a next gen type of Switch, how would they have performed and would they look a lot better? Obviously, the answer is yes. And would gamers be upset about that? No. If you were to put backwards compatibility in this new console, they'd be 100% on board to sell their old Switches and jump over to that one. And that's
I
more money,
think,
obviously.
yeah, I think a lot of the problem with the delay to Tears of the Kingdom is that they just can't release that in a state that is busted like any of these other games. Like they just won't do that. And I think they're having a hard time with everything that they tried to put in there. Like I think that it's just at the state where they're like, you know what? We were too ambitious and our hardware's been holding us back, and they're just compromising as much as they can.
Yeah. And unfortunate for gamers because they're missing out on, potentially fantastic content that might get cut in the final product because of limitations that are on this console. And we've been talking about a potential like successor to the Switch for several years now. It's come up, and honestly, like they had a moment where it would have been pretty hot to release like a console. Now it's like the Switch has been out so long, and there's been no sort of peep towards the successor to the console. Is the hype kind of gone right now? Like, how do they kind of reinvent that hype? Like with the PS5, you kind of know or knew, hey, it's going to come after like 7 years. Like we know the time frame. Like we know when Microsoft's creating their next
Well,
thing. Like we
7
know the time
years
frame.
is they, and I think they say that in the article here about how 7 years is about the time, or was that something else I was reading earlier today?
I don't know, maybe, but like with Sony, it's always been every generally 7 years
7
is when
years
it's
is pretty
when
regular
it's
for
but when it's
Nintendo too, with the
released. Yeah,
DS and everything. Oh
but
yeah,
when
it's
it's
down here at the
released,
bottom.
yeah, when it's released though, Sony makes announcements on like some of these new consoles well in advance to hype it up.
Well, yeah, but I mean, we talked about that a bit last week about long-term hype. But like one thing I think that, looking back on the life of the Switch is in the anticipation for the next Switch. I feel like we've lost out on a lot of stuff that could have happened on this Switch. Like, why in 7 years did we only get Mario Odyssey? Like, why wasn't there like a killer Mario Odyssey sequel?
Yeah,
Why are we waiting from the very beginning of the life to the very end of the life to get this second Zelda? Like, why was there just Mario Kart 8 that was a Wii U game? There was no actual Mario Kart released on this console.
Well,
It
they
was
have a
just a
bunch of new
port.
tracks. Yeah, well, at first, now they have a bunch of tracks, but
Well, yeah, but it's
there's
still not like a
yeah.
new Mario Kart. Like, there's so many things that could have been, and they just apparently they were
I
waiting for the sequel too.
I feel for you on like the Mario Odyssey too, because I loved Odyssey. It's obviously my favorite Mario game released, and I would have bought a Mario Odyssey 2 immediately. That
Yeah.
would have for sure been probably a day one purchase for me. And we don't get it. So hopefully on whatever new console comes out, like it's released on that. If they did a Mario Odyssey 2, and obviously they're probably keeping things close to the chest, and are obviously I would think it would not surprise me, obviously, if they're working on a console right now and some sort of announcement happens like spring of next year. In anticipation for a release in 2023. Because they have been like a little bit behind of, Sony and Microsoft by a couple of years. So I would think this coming fall, we'll probably see a new Nintendo console.
I mean,
That'd be my
historically,
opinion.
don't they release in the spring?
But there's not enough time for that now.
Yeah, not now, but
Yeah,
2024.
Yeah, but then you're gonna have another year of the Switch and 3 years of PlayStation 5, and like that's too much time between consoles at that point. That's what I'm saying. Like, if it starts to get stagnant, and when you see more and more broken games like Pokemon or things being held back, like gamers kind of catch wise to that. And like, why would you develop like a new Mario game like 8 years in, for example? It just seems odd. Like I could see you releasing a new console and putting it on both, like they did with Zelda.
Yeah.
That was on both the Wii U and on. And what's funny is I own a copy on the Wii U, but I don't own a copy on the Switch. I don't know. I see it happening in fall time for sure, just before the holidays in 2023. The other negative though that Nintendo is going to face now is recession. Globally, we're already in a recession technically, but to see the economy take a huge hit in 2023 with expectations of interest rates and all these other things, and Nintendo trying to jump in and release a new console, that's going to sting to try and you know, boost up your sales in the middle of a recession.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
going to be
my
tough.
wonder is though too then, with all the people that bought a Switch during pandemic that had never bought video games or had walked away for a long time, those people, was that just a one-time thing for them, or are those people going to now be repeat Nintendo buyers? Like, are all those people who bought a Switch Lite because it was the only thing out there and everybody and their mom was talking about Animal Crossing, like next time Animal Crossing comes out, are they going to be like, oh man, that was like a really good time during a bad time, let me go out and buy the Switch 2 and the new Animal Crossing like 3 years into the life cycle for whatever the next Switch is going to be? Or is it going to be that we're going to have Nintendo classically being like, whoops, we didn't know a bajillion people wanted this. We only made 20. Who wants one? You know,
Well,
like that happens so often that with the numbers that the Switch has done, am I going to have to wait longer than I've waited to get a PS5 to get the Switch 2?
so and is Nintendo going to be Nintendo as well? And what I mean by that is you follow up your N64 with the GameCube. Try to be unique, right? GameCube's a great
Oh,
console.
put a handle on it. I mean, it's already a portable system.
Yeah, right.
They should put a handle on the Switch. It makes so much sense, dude. It makes so much sense. It's like a clutch then.
You're killing me. So, but like you had Nintendo 64 to GameCube. GameCube ultimately got demolished by PS2, right? And then you have Wii, big success, but similar to Pandemic, very much like casual gamers, right? Casual gamers jumping on Pandemic, to buy a Switch is kind of, I would think, equivalent to grandmas wanting to play Wii bowling. You just, and that's why you have so many, like, if you were to go on like Craigslist or something, or like OfferUp or whatever right now and look at
Yeah,
collections for
but
Wii games,
the
the
Wii U
vast,
was never going to be a good follow-up to the Wii for grandma, dude. It's giving her a screen with extra
no, I know.
technology in it. That's not what grandma
But
wants,
the
man. She
point,
wants to stand on a board and shake a thing.
the point I'm trying to make though is Nintendo then released the Wii U and didn't go out in the market the correct way, confuse consumers. Was just not very. I mean, I knew what the hell it was because I play video games, but a lot of us casual gamers didn't necessarily know. And how many families or casual gamers are you going to have from the Switch? They're going to say, "Oh, I want to buy the new Switch too." Like they're going to have to come out with some new name, right? And are they going to have that same hype in the middle of a recession?
Yeah, not
I,
really.
it's going to be tough. Like we'll see what happens, but I don't know that 2023 bodes well for Nintendo. I think they missed the boat in not releasing a new Switch last year.
Yeah. I got
I mean,
one
but they really
more.
couldn't because of like chip shortages and stuff, I guess.
Yeah, I got one more thing on this, and then we'll move on to the inflation deflation. They do call out something in here that I know neither of us has experience with, but Nintendo really on this next console, they need to get their online service up to par with the modern era because from what they're saying here, it sounds like Nintendo Switch Online is still not a great place to play. Not great connection, not great infrastructure. I know that they are afraid of voice chat and other features and apps and stuff. Like they really need to get the next Switch connected in to the greater net and what people want from a console, and not just think that this is like just a big Game Boy.
Well, and voice acting in games, more
Yeah,
voice acting,
yeah,
Pokemon
that too.
specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Inflation,
Inflation,
deflation.
deflation, jinx. So we got Shadowmaster this week. I'm so sorry, Ryan. Developed by Hammerhead. It was published by Psygnosis, and it was directed by Chris Stanforth, is what you have here. It was released in January of 1998. It is a first-person shooter, and I will put quotations around that. Reception was a 1 to an 8, but mostly negative. So a lot of 4s, a lot of 5s.
Yeah.
So clearly shows you I was not thinking when I looked this game up. So general premise is you are basically in this futuristic setting in 16 different levels with aliens that look like things that are on Earth. So yeah, like spider enemies. You've got giant aliens that look like humans, etc. And you're rolling around on this like ATV that, I think you said it earlier before you started recording, like it's on ice the entire time. And you are actively in this first person mode, trying to complete these missions that are given to your objectives at the very beginning. So, what I will say about this is graphically, it looks fantastic. It's actually very good graphically. In fact, it showed a lot of promise when I first started playing it. The music is pretty good overall. Art direction obviously is tied to graphics good. The enemies are very clear in what you're fighting. Where it goes wrong is the controls and how everything flows. And also just like the general screen you're playing on is just not very intuitive to the game. It just doesn't flow well. You've got like this giant ring and you've got your little like scope area, right, where you can kind of shoot, but it doesn't really go beyond that. There's no like, you have a little bit of a map that shows like when enemies are coming, but you don't have like the objective obviously like on your screen at all times. Changing your weapons is pretty difficult. Trying to control your ATV while simultaneously shooting, which by the way, I continually went back to my joystick on my controller, and it's a D-pad only game. And of course, like the whole issue of like getting stuck in corners with the damn ATV and like just not being able to swing around edges and like shoot the enemy. And it's honestly just, it says on the back of the game case, it's like 16, I think 16 gruesome levels or something like that. Um, and I think that's about right. Like it's so difficult. And it's not even like the game itself is a difficult concept in what you're trying to accomplish. It's the controls are so bad, and the descriptions that are on screen and what's occurring is so bad that that's what makes it hard. Not necessarily the
Descriptions.
descriptions on screen. Like
What descriptions, dude? I like there was some like
that's what I'm saying.
voiceover at the beginning,
That's what I'm saying. There's
and then
no
I went
description.
through the level and I just shot things,
Yeah,
and then I got to the point where there was nothing left to shoot,
yeah.
and I didn't know where to go.
And that's what I'm
And the
saying. There's
door that I
no
thought I was supposed to go through, and it was telling me there was an enemy on the other side, wouldn't open.
so that's what I'm saying. There's no descriptions.
Yeah.
So like descriptions, controls, all of that makes this a absolutely terrible game. I will tell you, I did get to the boss in level 1, but
The
I have
big
no way.
tank.
Yeah, the big tank. I think that was the boss. Like,
Yeah, it's the only thing that had its own life bar.
well, no, if you went the other way, if you went left, there was also another life bar. And that's the thing. You have to complete all objectives that are provided to you at the beginning. And they don't list them. They just tell you. So like you jump in and there's like no
Wait,
way to
what was
like
the other thing?
so if you went right, you went through all of those enemies and you got to the tank. If you went left, it wasn't like another boss that I noticed. It was actually like a giant spider type deal that you could fight
Oh,
against.
well,
Yeah.
so there was like a couple of those spiders.
Yeah, but if you keep going, there's like one that has its own life bar dedicated.
Okay. So
Yeah.
maybe I just didn't kill both in the same run.
Yeah, like look,
This game
I
was trying to feel like how Ghost in the Shell was. Like it's meant to
yeah.
be like that same type of like moving side to side and strafing with your left and right triggers, and then, you know, being like a directional tank. But it just like it was so slippery. um there was like your reticle would like turn yellow and try to lock onto enemies so that you're like cannon shot would connect, but like I don't feel like the little lasers really did much. Like I had to really get the cannon to connect to do any damage. There were multiple like weapons or something to choose from, but I couldn't tell how to activate them. Like I could use the D-pad to select one, but how to use it beyond there, I had no idea, or
I
what
just
would have done anything different between them. I felt like at some point I was able to like move around pretty well and like kill enemies and be able to dodge using the strafe a little bit, but like I never felt like it felt good, or
yeah, it never
that
did.
I was able to like do any meaningful like maneuvering. Like it's all pretty narrow halls and stuff, so there's not like a lot of being able to get around, whereas like when we were playing Ghost in the Shell, like the Tachikoma could like go up walls, you know, it had a jump. There was a lot more to the momentum and the movement, whereas this is just kind of you just swing around, and if you hit a wall, you know, you better remember to go back the other way and hope that, you know, you can.
Yeah, it just I never did feel comfortable playing a game either. Um, and there's some games like even if they're bad, like for example, when we were playing Space Hulk last time, right? Was it a bad game? Not really. It wasn't a terrible game. It was hard as balls, but like
It was
we
a game
figured
that
out.
we shouldn't have played because it takes longer than 40 minutes to even begin to understand how to play, and that's about how much time we really have to give a game.
But, you know, we did give it some time after that, and we understood what we were doing, how we were playing, what the objectives were, what the overall concept of the game was. We were able to control things with no issue. We kind of got the general idea, and then the core reviews on that game was that it's super hard, obviously,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of tactical aspects. And I think we both agreed it was probably a game that's better on a mouse and keyboard than it would be on, you know, a console, especially something like the 3DO. Well, visually it was great. It wasn't exactly like the best place to play. And I think this is a similar situation. Like this could be a game that if I was using my my keyboard and a mouse, which it is on PC or was, I think I would have a better time playing this game on PC because it'd be easier to kind of control things and manage everything.
It has
Using a
worse ratings
D-pad,
on PC actually.
interesting. So like using a D-pad just sucked. And if it sucks on a D-pad and try and play it on a console, and I think it's gonna be better on PC and it's getting worse reviews on PC, then it's probably just a game to avoid in general. So
Well,
brass tacks.
brass tacks, you could decide where you want to play it. So complete in box, this game is going for a cool $15.48. That peaked at $17.95 back in July 2022. That is currently trending up. Loose copy will run you $683. That peaked at $762 back in August of 2017. That is holding currently. And from what I could find on the digital, it is abandonware. So you could just pick that up. I
Really?
wouldn't,
Just
but you
free?
can.
Like, just free?
Yeah, if you search for it, it's on like myabandonware.com.
Oh, interesting. So
Yeah.
if you want to try it out, that's the best way to do it. Because honestly, I wouldn't buy it at all.
No.
Like, I wouldn't even put $5 towards this game or $3. Like, unless you're trying to complete like a PlayStation collection, or you're like specifically looking for first person shooters on an ATV where you are at knee height on the enemy, then sure, put forth a couple dollars. But I 100% believe that this is highly, highly inflated in price.
Yeah, there is also, just so you don't get confused, there's a Shadow Master movie as of 2022.
There's also a comic book that you could get with this game, and maybe that's why people bought it, was for the comic book. Yeah.
I don't think that the movie is related.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't think the game should be related to anything on console. It should just disappear forever. It should be abandonware everywhere. But unfortunately, it's not. It still remains to this day. So this is probably the most critical I've been on a game for a long time. Like, honestly, like
a good one.
I had more fun playing Revolution X. This might be the year hasn't ended. This might be my worst game of the year. What a way to cap it off.
I would definitely rather play this than Revolution X.
I don't know, man. Revolution X, I mean, we got stuck, but at least we knew what the hell was going on. Like, it was bad, but I don't think it was this bad. All right. Well, I don't think we're going to have an inflation deflation next week because we're going to have Rue. So we're going to chat with him on just gaming in general. Got to figure out what the hell we're going to talk about with him other than just new games resolutions. So keep an eye out for that. You get to hear what Ryan and I plan on playing as we unveil that. And we'll be asking Rue to present his game that he wants to actively play. And we'll see where we both end up and who finishes first.
All right. Sounds good, man. I've already got my decision made. So
yeah, I'm stoked to hear what you got for this year. So this has been episode 215 of a Game Deflators podcast. My name's John.
I'm Ryan.
And thanks for listening.